Well, good morning everyone. Today I'm in Sliema. I'm taking a long exposure shot of Valletta skyline. It's a windy, cloudy day this morning. The sun has just risen on my left side here. Now taking a few shots of around 2 minutes in long exposure, and I'll be turning them into black and white. Lately I had a few comments saying my images look fake, but don't worry, everyone has their own opinion. I hope you true photographers understand my editing process and that shooting in RAW, you have to edit your images. They used to do it in the old days in the darkroom, and many people do not realize that today's darkroom is called Lightroom. Well, this is the image I'll be taking, and up above is Valletta skyline. It's starting to rain, and I'll show you the long exposure shot I took just a few minutes ago. I don't know if you can see it on my screen. I'm going to take a couple of shots, and then I choose the best ones when we get home, and we'll be editing them in black and white. I'm going to go for a black and white fine art, and I hope you guys like the images. Stay with me, hit the subscribe button, and it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up and a nice comment, which I'm sure to answer all your comments. Thank you guys, and I see you back home. Well, I'm back home in the studio, guys, and I'm gonna start editing this image in Adobe Camera Raw using Lightroom. It's just the same. And the first thing I'm gonna start off with is lowering the exposure to around there. I'm gonna lower the highlights also. I'm gonna increase a bit of shadows, increase the whites, check out the blacks. I'm pressing down the Alt key to do the whites and the blacks until I see clippings on the histogram. Next, I'm going to increase just a bit of contrast. Should be okay. And next, I'm going to head down to the effects panel, increase a bit of texture, a touch of clarity, and a bit of dehaze. We'll be turning this image into black and white. We'll be using Photoshop for the process. Just a couple of minutes in Photoshop. So stay with me and we'll bring it back into Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom. Next, I'm going to increase the color of the calibration, and I'm going to increase the saturation blue primary to increase as much color as I can to around there. It's turning out to be a great color image, but I want to turn it into black and white fine art. And from here, we're going to take it over to Photoshop, and we're going to turn it into black and white. I don't use the black and white button up here. Photoshop does a much better job. So bear with me through these couple of minutes in Photoshop. Click OK. Well, here we are in Photoshop. And I'm going to go down to this half black and white circle, the adjustment layer, and click on black and white. I'm going to close this panel. Here you can play around with the sliders so you increase the individual colors of the image, but I'm going to leave it how they are. And next I'm going to click on the adjustment layers and click on gradient map. I'm going to click on smooth in the drop down window here, and there we have a much better black and white image instead of using the one in Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw. Next, flatten these layers, flatten image, and we're going to get back to Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom. As I said, it was just a couple of minutes, and that's all we'll be using in Photoshop. Click on Filter and Camera Raw Filter. Here we are in Adobe Camera Raw, and I'm going to use the exposure panel once again, and I'm going to try out the sliders once again. I'm going to reduce the highlights to there, increase a touch of shadows again to around there. I don't think I'm going to touch the whites and the blacks. And next I'm going to start the masking process. We'll be turning this image, as I said, into black and white fine art. And I'm going to start off the masking by using the linear gradient, which I'm going to place over the top of the sky. Which should be around there, and now I'm going to decrease the exposure. I'm going to turn it a bit to there, and I'm going to create another mask and another linear gradient, and I'm just going to place it over the top left corner. And here I'm going to decrease the exposure once again. That should be okay. I'm going to create another mask, and I'm going to use the linear gradient again for the foreground. I hope you enjoy my editing process, nice and slow, so you can follow along and get the hang of it very easily. And I just created a linear gradient for the foreground. And now I'm going to reduce the exposure also. And like this, we'll be drawing the viewer's eye to the center of the image, which is Valletta skyline in Malta. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a brush, and with the brush I'm going to decrease the size, and I'm going to paint away on Valletta skyline. I'm going to cover the buildings all the way to the other end. Even this dome of the church here, and even this one and this one. I've spilled over onto the sea here. Just use the subtract brush and remove it from the sea. Doesn't have to be exactly accurate. And that should be okay. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to increase the shadows like this. Increase a bit of exposure, and I'm trying to brighten up the center part where the viewer's eye will see the most. I'm going to increase a bit of the whites also, and I'm going to increase just a touch of sharpness. To about there. You can see that the image is already getting much better. And here I'm going to show you the before and after by using the mask. We're not ready though. That's the before, and that's the mask with the masks. The next thing I'm going to do is use a radial gradient. And the radial gradient, I'm going to place it over this area where the sun has risen further to my left here. So I'm going to place it out of the image. I'm going to tilt it just a bit, open it up a bit more. And I'm going to place it somewhere there. And I'm going to increase a bit of exposure to give that sense of direction where the light was coming from. The next thing I'm going to do is use another radial gradient. We're soon finished with the editing, and here I'm going to create a vignette but doing a natural vignette. I'm not going to place it in the center like normal editing photographers do. I'm going to place it, which you should do also, is place it on the brightest part where the light was coming from, and that is from here. I'm going to open it even more, open it from here, bring it down a bit, and here I'm going to invert the mask, and we'll be creating a vignette. I'm going to reduce the exposure to about there. I'm going to open it some more, and I'm going to reduce a touch of highlights, increase the exposure. I'll decrease the exposure, I mean, to about there. I'm going to head out of the masking, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to head over to the curve tool here, and here I'm going to increase the highlights to around there. Make sure you don't have any clippings on your histogram on the right side, and I'm going to increase the light also to around there. Next thing I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do just one more mask, and I'm going to place it over this pillar here, or whatever it is, where they used to tie the ships to, and I'm going to use a radial gradient and place it over here, and I'm just going to increase a touch of exposure and a bit of shadows. going to open it up a bit more. Increase a bit of more shadows to around there. I'm going to use another radial gradient. I'm going to put it over the brighter parts where I see on this image on the foreground here. I'm going to increase a bit of exposure. I'm going to use another radial gradient for around here. This is dodging and burning. And that should be okay. I'm going to head out of everything. I'm going to reduce the image size. And now I'm going to show you the before and after by pressing P on the keyboard. This is the before. We already have a great black and white image, and with masking you take your image to a very high level, and to me I call it fine art photography. And this is the after. Again, the before and the after, and you can see the amazing difference by using my method of turning your image into black and white, and even black and white fine art. Thank you guys for having patience with me, sticking with me to the end of the video. Hit the subscribe button, a thumbs up, and make sure to leave any comments down below, which I will answer them as soon as I can. Thank you once again, and I'll see you.